Ready. Go. Okay. Welcome. Good to see you, sir.
No, sir, nothing. I'm your dad.
Great. Okay.
You remember me?
Yes.
Okay,
What is
good.
your full name?
Herbert Charles Stein.
And when were you born?
September 11th, 1929.
September 11, 19.
1 o'clock in the morning, give or take.
Okay. And what's your earliest memory of your childhood?
That's a good question. Let me I hadn't quite thought of that for a while. I would say sick. Seemed like there was the ears, the nose, the mouth, the larynx, you name it, it was sick.
Okay.
Everything was sick. I think your grandma, I'm speaking to you, if you know that I'm speaking to you, Jim Stein, she was worried about this because remember I was 5 years before the siblings were coming along. And so I was the only child and I was sick, oh boy, in the hospital, out of the hospital, up the arm with this and up down the arm with that and then the back and so forth. All through when I'm 12, 13, even junior high school, I was having those kind of things happening. So it was a wonderful time. We had some great fun in the backyard. We did a lot of stuff around the house. I did skating when I could breathe. I was out there skating and skating. Come on in, Herbie, it's time to go to lunch. No, I'm skating. We're building airplanes here. We're building an airplane right here. All imaginary, but we had an airplane. And the airplane crashed and we got to rebuild it. Let's see, I got to get the wheels on. I got to get the other wheel on. We've got to put wings on this thing. Later, when I saw the movie Rise of the Phoenix, if you remember it at all, I was there in some sense. I felt like I was part of it. Anyway, childhood. Okay, so that runs like that. There may be a couple of things as we go along that will spark my memory, and I'll bring them up.
So, you lived. Tell me about the first house that you remember, where it was, what it was like, and
that gives me a whole
one.
bunch of memories right there because I was on a street. I can't remember the name of it, but we were on a street there, and other kids in the neighborhood, I guess, but there were a lot of us here, and we were involved in kind of hiding as the cars went by slowly. This was a 25 mile an hour zone, I guess, or 20 mile where I lived where the house was. And the cars would go by, and I don't think we threw rocks, but we threw water bombs. And we threw that, and we ran, and we hid, and they were coming after us. No, they didn't come after us, and we didn't do that very often. But once in a while, that was part of the life.
What city was that?
Basically Los Angeles, but I can't tell you exactly where. It might have been somewhere other than what I can remember when I first can tell you when I really moved into a house that I remember. That would be 619 North Heliotrope Drive. And we're there, and we're close to a streetcar. In those days, there was something called a streetcar. It had a little trolley, and it went downtown. And I remember that because every so often, your grandma Sarah wanted to take me into downtown to where we could go to the May Company basement, and we could do some shopping. And she would get there. I don't shopping. You gotta go, clothes on clothes, and who needs this stuff? Was kind of my attitude at that time. And I wasn't the sartorial splendor that you became, Jim, seriously. And I can understand why, because we gave you hand-downs all the time except for shoes. Shoes were new. Shoes were always new. But anyway, back to the streetcar line and back and forth. And it was interesting too, because as I recall, as it went downtown, a lot of the area was open. Los Angeles, open, like open lots, not so much acreage. I didn't think of acreage. I think in looking back at it mentally, it wasn't acreage, it was lots, a lot of lots, empty lots. And then I really never in all my childhood and even as I was growing up, ever thought people would actually build on a lot. I mean, you actually got to go buy stuff and build on a lot. Nobody did that. They just wasn't done. And so I was really surprised later in life when buildings they said we're going to build something and they built it. I was really shocked. But anyway, the gist of it is that, let's see, back and forth. And the exciting time of the life was very interesting, other than going to doctors and back and forth and around, and to school when I could get up and go. I would go, I don't remember exactly how many times or when, but I really enjoyed what we called the Plunge. It was a large building, and it was called Bimini Plunge. You might be able to look it up in the internet these days. Bimini Plunge, and there were several pools, and I loved going in there with hot water, and the air was so thick with chlorine, it didn't bother me a bit. I loved it, and I had no supports for my ears and nose. By the way, in there somewhere around 8, 9, 10, I don't know, there it was, I had a serious, or maybe it was even younger, serious ear infection. Went in, get it lanced. Next week, next month, another lancing. Next month, lancing, taking out the infections, what they were working on. They're taking them out. Okay. So they finally decided we can't do it anymore. And in those days, sulfa maybe was the best. You could get sulfa pills for infection. And they weren't working, I guess. They didn't have anything past that.
No antibiotics.
There was no antibiotics, no penicillin even. Whatever it was, they didn't have it. They had the knife. And so they said, well, take them in. They didn't talk to me and ask me about it. They just took me in to the hospital, and I see a guy there, a youngster. I was a youngster at that time, somewhere, I'm saying between maybe 6 and 12, somewhere in that zone, as I recall. And he had a bandage like this, coming down the head like this, and the ear was all colored out like that. Gee, hey, I don't want one of those things, no. So it came out, I had them on both ears. They did both ears. From what I gathered and heard, this is oral hearing, that a Japanese doctor who knew how to do this opened up the skull and cured it up real good, pasted it back together, exactly how he did it on both sides. And every doctor that's seen it since has said he can't believe it, that they actually had double mastoid operation. And it's so unobtrusive. What he doesn't realize is all my early pictures, and maybe Auntie Joanne can give you a hint on that. This is my early picture. And after that operation, boop, it cut down on my hearing. I can hear much better when it's like this. And Vivian won't give me acquisition to put spirit gum back here and go back to here. Right. I can hear much better. In fact, it lowers my voice because I hear my voice better. But anyway.
Question.
Yeah.
So think about elementary school and think of
water, lots of water. It rained, it was up to here. The streets were full of water from one side, Alexandria Avenue Grammar School. I can't remember like kindergarten, but 3, 4, 5 grades, I knew those grades, all the way up to the 6th grade we went to grammar school. And you go there, and when it was raining, it was pouring. It's usually March, January through March there. It never rained in California. Boy, it never stopped raining, it seemed like.
What about the people in, the other kids?
Right next door to me.
How'd you do in grades? And
Beverly and Jim. And you're going to be surprised. Jim was a nice guy next door. No Jewish around. Jim. And Beverly, that's his brother. They named him Beverly. It's almost like the song. Remember the song? It says, what was he named? I forget what he was named, but Johnny Cash sings it. Sue, yeah. Anyway, nobody ever said anything to me that it was something terrible. I just thought it sounded a little strange.
Going to elementary school.
Talk
about you doing homework or not doing homework.
Yeah.
You engaging with teachers or not.
Homework wasn't known.
Engaging with other people.
We didn't know homework.
Did you find it difficult? Did you find it easy? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
Grammar school was fine. It was really, recess time was great, and inside the classroom, I didn't like, I had all the way through there, and even in high school, I believe I had a little bit of that, shut up, quiet down, not in class, but after. Let us get out of there already. The kids telling me, saying, hey, Herb, that's enough already. Just leave her to go. I said, I didn't understand it. I wanted to have it clarified. They didn't hit me until later, when I was a little older.
All right. So now, when you think of when you're a young man, a boy,
Yeah,
and you're in elementary school, not high school, elementary school.
right.
You think about your father, okay?
Oh, my dad,
Yeah,
real nice.
from
Yeah,
your perspective, what was your relationship with your father?
it was good.
How would you describe your father and all that?
Yeah, my dad was a nice young man, and I can picture him in some sense because I got a picture of him in a 1929. It may be a bathing suit, it may not be, but he was on a boat, and I see a picture of him like that. But the other picture, I think Joanne may even have it. With him, I'm holding his hand, and we're walking downtown to Grandpa Morris Frankel's place. That's the Morris Frankel Incorporated thing that owned the Janet Manor. This is later in life. We'll talk about that later. But gist of it was we'd walk along to the print shop, Pacific Cooperative Press on Los Angeles Street. And I mean Los Angeles Street at those days wasn't as bad as it got terrible later. I mean, seriously bad. Drugs, I mean, the whole bit. But at that point, we went down, and of course I went up and helped move the stuff for filing or do the paperwork and so forth. I watched the presses go, but my dad, he had done some of this like this at one point in his life, and his hand stayed in a little too long. And so I never realized there was anything wrong with it, but it was hurt. And but you know, he was a pitcher. They played softball.